Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single morning celebrates the people who make coastal Mississippi such a special place to live, work, and play. And today is Friday, so it's Saints. Well, we shouldn't just say Saints because there's a little bit of other football, college football that we'll talk about as well, but it's Jeff Duncan Day. Let's put it that way. From NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, our dear friend, been with us for, every Friday for a long time, and we really appreciate him. But before I go any further, Jeff, let me just say, how are you doing, my friend?
Ricky, I'm doing great, man. It's fall. It's a great time of year in the Gulf Coast, so no complaints.
It really is. And did you get over here and enjoy Bay St. Louis?
Yeah, spent the weekend in Bay St. Louis, watched a lot of football, got out on the beach a couple of times, went for some nice bike rides and runs, and also just got to decompress a little bit. It was
It's a special place, isn't it, man? Yeah,
really done a great job of restoring the beaches over there. I know they've had a lot of work to restore them, bringing in tons of sand, having to clean off all the debris. Really impressive how much they've improved it since the last time I was over there.
Yeah, if you think about how that city and really all of the cities of Hancock County in general were challenged by Hurricane Katrina, and the tenacity and the determination to come back, and the massive resiliency that was on display there. Old Town, Bay St. Louis, the waterfront area, the emerging new hotels and the incredible restaurants. The vibe, that's the thing that I focus on so much. I mean, we have that in all, each town has their own little sense of place, but Bay St. Louis in particular just has such a cool vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I saw it and experienced it all weekend. I mean, it was just rocking all weekend. And, the Pro Hotel there in downtown Bay St. Louis is a beautiful hotel, really nice setup there. And that place is rivals anything we have in New Orleans over here. And it was booked all weekend. They told me it's booked for through the next month on every weekend. So it's great to see the economy and the business starting to come back there in the wake of Ida.
Hey, so when you're walking around, you're kind of a popular guy over in New Orleans. So when you're walking around on the streets of Bay St. Louis, is it how often do you bump into people who either know you or you know?
Yeah, no, it happens almost every night we're out over there. I mean, there's so many New Orleanians too over there, have second homes. Certainly happened really every night we were out, and it's fun. It really feels like a little extension of New Orleans in some ways, and going out watching football games, which I don't get to do very much of, Ricky. I'm almost always at a game. It was really refreshing to be able just to sit back and watch football, watch that crazy OLe Miss Tennessee game. That was crazy how that played out, and then watching Mississippi State, Alabama. Of course, that didn't turn out as well for State, but it was a lot of fun for me, and the weather was spectacular. And the other thing I noticed along the waterfront there in Bay St. Louis down all the way down toward Waveland, they've done a great job of restoring that beach. They're still in the middle of that, but they've opened up that nice wide walking path and biking path. It's just they're doing great work there to make that such a great livable city.
It's incredible. You take that ride all the way down to the Silver Slipper. My friend John Ferrucci, who's the general manager there, such a good friend of mine, such a great friend to this show. And he's such a great leader in Hancock County. But they're connecting all the dots there. And by the way, if you go back and look at the history, obviously you know this really well because you're very aware of all of this. But this has always been sort of a second home place for New Orleanians. And if you go back and look in the history of Waveland in particular, there was a period of time where part of Waveland, or if not all of Waveland, was considered to be part of Louisiana. They didn't even realize that it was part of Mississippi. But you can't get away from the reality that there's a tremendous connection between Louisiana and Hancock County. It's just the way it is. It's always been that way. And in fact, if anything, the pandemic and hurricane challenges and whatever other challenges might be ahead of us has made that connection even stronger, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing how many people I ran into over there that either work in New Orleans, spend a lot of time between the two markets. I think it's only going to get further enhanced. That connection in the Waveland area has really picked up. I mean, those little neighborhoods back there are all being developed right now. You can just see the progress that's being made.
It is really cool. Hey, we're going to talk about the Saints. Of course, we just had an off week, and there's so much news to talk about. We get the benefit of having you for the full show today. You mentioned the Tennessee Ole Miss game, and you saw that sort of. I'm assuming you were watching the game and saw that unfold real time. It was pretty ugly. What an unflattering moment for Tennessee fans. What's your take on what happened?
Well, look, it was pretty unprecedented. We've seen in the past games where stuff's thrown out of the stands, but nothing like that. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, it was dangerous. Golf balls, full bottles of water. Someone could have really gotten hurt there, and it was, to me, it crossed a line where public safety was now, the top priority, and they just didn't. To me, I didn't feel like the stadium staffing was adequate enough to have that under control. I mean, when you have cheerleaders having to use their signs, their spirit signs to cover up their heads, I mean, that's scary, Ricky. And I think the SEC clearly sent a message with that hefty fine at Tennessee, and hopefully we don't ever see anything like that happen again.
Yeah, in the past, when I remember when I was, a student going to games and whatever, if somebody threw something or someone got in a fight or anything happened that was abnormal, that it needed to have some kind of security presence, buddy, they came out of the woodwork almost immediately. And people would say that the scale of this didn't enable that, but that's not true, actually. Because anything could happen at any moment on any aisle. And my experience was that they appeared quickly. In this particular case, it didn't look like they sort of moved into the area until several minutes after this thing started. So I think that we're going to see probably all of college football, for that matter, doing maybe it's going to affect the NFL as well, but doing a complete review of how they respond to situations like this. They've got to nip it in the bud. The fact that it was lingered as long as it did was really shocking, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think it was a tough call. I mean, it might have been a bad call, but that doesn't give you the right to react that way and to endanger people on the field because you got a bad call. I mean, we've seen over here in New Orleans, I've seen bad calls. We saw one of the worst calls in NFL history. You can't react that way. Those things happen as part of the game. And I understand there's a lot of emotion, probably a lot of alcohol involved late on a Saturday night. You've been tailgating all day, but that was embarrassing in my opinion, and certainly egregiously over the line. And I'm sure it's gonna be on the front burner for every stadium operations personnel staff across the SEC, because it was such a big game with Lane Kiffin coming back. There's a lot of factors that fed into that the way it played out.
So that's the other thing that I'm surprised about. Lane Kiffin was fired. Why is there so much bad blood there?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Lane Kiffin seems to have that polarizing effect everywhere he's at. But I thought he actually handled it pretty well.
He did.
Kind of making fun of the whole situation, but it was dangerous. I mean, you get hit by a golf ball. I mean, that could cause you lose an eye, or it could fracture a jaw or something like that.
Yeah, I actually watched him carefully after the game was over, and I noticed, he did what you're supposed to do after the game and whatever in terms of shaking hands and whatever. But I noticed that he put his hood on, and I think he realized that in case anybody was coming over the barriers, onto the field, he was very aware. He may have downplayed it, and he certainly did, but he was very aware of his own safety there in that moment. I can tell.
Oh yeah, I mean, the fact that he had to have all that security around him speaks volumes. And no, it was a scary situation, Ricky. I haven't never seen anything like it. I've covered a lot of games. I've seen some unruly moments. I've seen it at the Superdome where beers are coming out of the stands, but that's plastic cups, not like what we saw going on. I've never seen that much debris on one field. I mean, we only got a little bit of a snippet of it from the broadcast, but afterwards, seeing some of the photos was mind-boggling.
It really was mind-boggling. You mentioned State. State, of course, had a key injury at the beginning of that game, but boy, Alabama bounced back, didn't they?
Yeah, that was unfortunate for State getting Alabama on the heels of a loss. If you look historically, when they lose, the rare time they lose a game, the next game, it's never very good for that opponent. And Alabama, I think, is going to be in the mix to the very end. I think it's going to be them and Georgia, and they're going to give Georgia everything they want if they reach that SEC championship game again. And that'll be an epic game because I think they're clearly the two best teams in college football.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And I'll say it one more time. I say it every show, but if you're a Saints fan, an LSU fan, just to want to know what's going on in the news in our region, you need to sign up for the various newsletters that are available through the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com, especially the Saints newsletter. It's terrific, and I can't imagine anyone would cover the Saints better than this team does. We'll see you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
It's 2021 and J. Allen Toyota still has a lifetime warranty on all new Toyotas. They all come with Toyota Care. We've got a great rental department. We've got great used cars. We've got a parts and service department ready to help you. So when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Back with my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We're going to come back to the Saints in just a second. Jeff has covered the Saints longer than anyone else. He's written books about the Saints. He's the man in terms of what's happening at the Saints these days. And boy, there is a lot of Saints moves as they bring people in off the injured reserve and pick up some new players and work with the practice squad. A lot of dynamics happening right now. We'll be talking about that in just a second. One of the things that Jeff pays a lot of attention to and has for many years is what's happening at LSU. So were you surprised with how the Orgeron thing sort of played out, or you fully expected it?
A little bit. I'd gathered from some sources that it was inevitable, but the timing of it happening when it did was a little surprising to me, just because Scott Woodward's track record is not to make a change during the season. And ultimately he didn't. They just agreed to part ways, and the news was going to leak out when they finally reached that agreement. But after that Kentucky game, the writing was on the wall. I mean, you're LSU, Ricky. You can't go to Kentucky and give up 330 yards rushing. There's no way that should happen. The disparity between those two programs in terms of budget, prestige, everything involved was embarrassing, I think, for everyone involved with LSU to get beat that way. And I think even Ed Orgeron said afterwards that he was embarrassed by how it played out. I think even he knew at that point that his stay in Baton Rouge was going to be short.
Well, Mississippi, you're talking about SEC teams. You've got Mississippi State and OLe Miss. You've got other players, other teams that are around the fringes competing for players. You go over to Alabama, you got Alabama and Auburn. But in Louisiana, you got LSU. Again, you got other teams that are playing around the fringes, but make no mistake about it, the team is LSU. So the expectations are great. I do think the way they did it showed respect for Orgeron. It bought them a little bit of time. And I bet there's still a lot of activity going on around the coaching search. What's the latest on that?
Well, Scott Woodward is going to be a big hire for him. I mean, he's really in the process of probably identifying candidates. He probably is a little down the road on that, to be honest with you. He's done this in the past at Texas A&M and at University of Washington. He makes big, splashy hires. He's known as a big game hunter. At Washington, he was able to lure Chris Peterson out of Boise State when no one could get Chris Peterson to leave Boise State. And at A&M, of course, he was able to hire Jimbo Fisher away from Florida State at a time when he was very comfortable and very successful in Tallahassee. And I think we're going to see a very similar type move here. I think everything that's going to drive this decision is finding the right coach that can stare Alabama eye to eye. I think just think of that. I don't know who it's going to be, but I know who it's not going to be, and it's probably not going to be an up-and-coming assistant coach, someone without the chops to take on Alabama, because that's unfortunately the world that LSU lives in. They're in the same division with the best program in college football. They've got to somehow find a way to compete with them. So it's going to take a coach that's not intimidated by that challenge, someone that actually embraces that challenge. And there's not too many of those people out there. So it'll be interesting to see.
So if you were doing a search today, who would you be thinking about?
I think it'll be people like that. Jimbo Fisher, James Franklin at Penn State. I think it could be a big name that's not on somebody's radar screen. Someone like a Logan Riley at Oklahoma or a Dabo Swinney at Clemson that maybe is ready for a change that people don't know about on the surface. And the best example I can give of that is he hired Kim Mulkey away from Baylor to be the women's basketball coach. No one thought Kim Mulkey was ready to leave Baylor. She'd been highly successful there. I think it's going to be that kind of hire that Woodward makes, because he can't find somebody that's going to come in and just keep the status quo. He's got to raise the bar at Baton Rouge and find another Nick Saban type head coach here. And I think now with Scott Woodward there, a qualified, very well respected athletic director, this job becomes much more attractive to a lot of candidates than it was with Joe Oliva, the previous athletic director. And you mentioned it earlier, Ricky, that there's a huge advantage here in Louisiana, and that LSU is the only really premier school here, the only Power 5 school in the state with incredible recruiting grounds. So that gives LSU, I think, a leg up on a lot of other programs. You can win a national championship here. The fact that 3 different head coaches have won national titles here in the last 15 years speaks volumes.
It really speaks volume. But as we learned with Orgeron, you're only as good as your last performance. and now that we're able to see, we saw it in the case of multiple quarterbacks in college football history. But when you've got a great quarterback and you got a good recruiting class, you can win it. And there's so many great examples of that. What Cam did in Auburn, it was just incredible. And that's happened at LSU more than once. It's going to happen again. But they're not looking for a spurt just because you had a great quarterback. They're looking for the ability to build a dynasty that can compete with the Alabamas over a period of time. That's the goal, isn't it? Yeah, and that's why it's going to take the right person. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think I know who it's not going to be. And I don't think it's going to be someone that Woodward is going to roll the dice on unless he feels like it's a young Urban Meyer. Like Urban Meyer won at Bowling Green. Then he went out to Utah and won. Then he comes and goes to Florida and wins. He wins at Ohio State. He has a track record of winning in lots of different parts of the country. And I think you can find that person. I know a lot of times people think, you have to get someone from the South that understands how to recruit. I don't believe that personally. I think if you get a good head coach that knows how to build culture and build a foundation, they're going to win wherever they go. Nick Saban was a great example. I was the beat writer at the Times-Picayune when he was hired. I broke that story for the Times-Picayune. He came from Michigan State, had really no background in the South, and we saw what Nick Saban's been able to do. You get the right person, players are going to want to play for him. Hey, listen, we'll start fresh with the Saints in the next segment, but NBA season is getting going. So what's your thoughts about where the Pelicans are at this moment? Well, as we're recording this early, the Pelicans will have opened the season on Wednesday night in the Smoothie King Center against the Philadelphia 76ers. They get them without Ben Simmons. So hopefully they could start the season off on a winning note, but they're going to be doing it without Zion Williamson. That's the big disappointing thing for the Pelicans right now, that he's not back from his off-season foot surgery. They desperately need some positive momentum to start the season, and they're going to have to do it without their best player. I just don't sense a lot of buzz right now. I've been impressed so far with Willie Green, the new head coach, but he's got a challenge early on with the schedule in trying to get some wins without Zion Williamson on the court. So we'll see. I think if they can start well, Ricky, get some enthusiasm, some momentum, and then get Zion back, I think this team will definitely make a playoff run. And I think they have to for David Griffin, the general manager, to retain his job. There's a lot of pressure on him this year. Yeah, you said that before, but Willie Green does bring a whole new culture to the table. It will be very interesting, his ability to connect with young players. How long is Zion going to be out? We don't know. I mean, they're not giving us a timeline, but it sounds like at least a couple weeks. Yeah, for sure, at least a week. I mean, he hasn't even gotten really back to cardio yet. That's part of the problem when you have one of those like foot injuries or lower leg injuries. You can't do much cardio. You have to get in the pool and do it, and it's just not the same. So for him to get back into basketball shape, I think it's going to take a little while. And last thing before we move on to the Saints, but it's related to the Saints, your series about what happens to the Saints when Miss Benson passes on. We talked about it in detail the last time we were on the show together, but the Saints and that organization and Miss Benson and your readers had to have been pleased with the work that you guys did on the series of stories. Well, I think it was necessary. I think there were a lot of questions that people had about what's going to happen to these teams, especially given Gail Benson's status. She's 74. She's very healthy, but she has no heirs. And there's always been questions about what's going to happen. And I thought she was very candid in saying these teams aren't going anywhere. My goal is to keep them here long term. I think that was reassuring to fans who might be worried that one or both of the organizations might be imperiled when her ownership ends. I had the pleasure of meeting with both Tom Benson and Gail Benson not long after I arrived in Louisiana, and they seemed like a terrific team. There is no doubt about that. They were a terrific team. He would be so proud of the way that she's handled herself and his legacy since he passed away. What don't you think?
Yeah, I think she's tried to carry on the operating procedure that he set. I mean, they run a very lean operation. They punch above their weight class. We know New Orleans is a small market, relatively speaking, compared to their peers in the NBA and the NFL. And those are two different business models, the NBA and the NFL, the way they operate. It's a bigger challenge in the NBA. But I think the challenge for them right now, Ricky, is to try and make Pelicans a destination franchise the way they've done with the New Orleans Saints. That's been a huge success on that side of the building. They're trying to replicate it on basketball operations.
Well, they're certainly putting the money there, and they're doing everything they can to overcome the small market aspect of what they bring to the table. But when we come back, we're going to get the latest on the Saints. This is Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We'll see you after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to SuperTalkMSGulfCoast.com.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Get the scoop on what happened in college football and what to expect in the NFL. Each Sunday on Sports Sunday with Michael Borky. Get the story behind the stats, 8 to 10 a.m. on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and watch the show on supertalk.tv. SuperTalk Mississippi. We're more than just words. This is where the story of your state is told. Proud to cover the Magnolia State like nobody else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. talking
Yeah.
to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard. And,
Wow.
all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
His love for the coast is why he's here. It's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I have my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. He's covered the Saints longer than anyone else. He has the sources to prove it and a long, long stretch over many, many years of breaking incredibly important stories related to the sort of the sports community. He's on the NFL Hall of Fame selection committee, and he's been the sports reporter of the year many times. He's just on top of his game. But anyway, thank you for being with us, Jeff. We really appreciate it. Now, let's move on to the Saints. Wow. I mean, buddy, you knew we had a lot of players hurt, and we've been shuffling players in and on and off of this team. Kind of give us, where are we right now as we go into the Seattle game?
Well, we're finally seeing some of the injured, walking wounded come back into the practice mix. To the Saints activated, I think Traquan Smith, Quan Alexander, and Will Lutz. All of them are eligible to come back and start practicing. That doesn't mean they're going to play, but that's a good sign. That starts the clock ticking. I think they have 3 weeks now to get back on the field, and that's the first step that you take coming off injured reserve. So those are bodies they need back at key positions. Also, Marcus Davenport. I forgot Marcus Davenport is their best pass rusher. And we will definitely see David Onyemata back after this game. The Seattle game is on Monday night. And then the Saints have a huge, huge showdown with Tampa Bay in the Superdome after that Seattle game. So a quick turnaround, the Monday night game on the West Coast, a long flight back from Seattle. The Saints won't get back till early Tuesday morning. And they've got to turn around their preparation and get their game plan put together in time for that big game against the Bucs in the Superdome. If you think about it, Ricky, that'll be week 7, week 8. The Saints will have played one home game in the Superdome. I don't think anybody else in the league has had such a little home field advantage in the first part of their schedule. So I think if the Saints can get a win out in Seattle and come back 4-2, you got to feel good about things.
You know what's interesting? If you look across the league, I'm going to zero in on the Bucs here in just a second, but you look across the league, and like the Chiefs just barely got past the Titans, and you're seeing, teams that you would expect to win not winning, but the Bucs seem real, and we're going to have to be ready for that game. Unfortunately, they're in our division, and It's just, but we've always played them well. Let's face it. We've always played them well. What's your sense of how we stack up against the Bucs these days?
I think quite well. I mean, last year they swept them during the regular season, beat them down in Tampa pretty handily, and then of course when it mattered, Tampa came in and took care of business when they were just playing very well last year. I think this year we could see something similar happen in the NFC. We've seen it in the past, right? We've seen wild card teams like the New York Giants go on and win the Super Bowl. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers did it once. It's not uncommon a team gets hot at the end of the year and is playing better than everybody else. And I think that's what happened with Tampa last year. I think the Saints match up very well with them. I think they've got some certain areas of the team that have to improve. The pass rush has to get better, but they're getting Marcus Davenport back and they're going to get David Onyemata back. That's going to be immediate upgrades for that one area of the team, I think, where they have really not been as good as we thought they would be. And they've been extraordinary, Ricky, in scoring in the red zone. They lead the NFL. They've scored 13 touchdowns in 14 red zone trips. That's unprecedented. I don't think they're going to keep that pace up. But they also lead the league in red zone defense. So when teams get down the red zone, the Saints are holding teams to field goals and scoring touchdowns. And that's really why they've been as successful as they've been early on without all these key players out.
Well, one of the things that makes you such a good reporter is that with a season like this where we haven't really found the personality yet, you're trying to get used to a new quarterback. You've had a lot of ups and downs on the defense, a lot due to injuries, I might add. It's hard to kind of get your head around it, but I see you always going back to sort of the statistical analysis. When you look at the numbers, what do you see in this team?
Well, look, my colleague Luke Johnson had a great report the other day, and I think it speaks to what you're talking about. This team is 28th in the league in offense right now. 28. That's unheard of in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. They finished in the top 10 every year but one. And one year, I think the year they didn't make it, they were 12th. And that was last year. They've been a top 10 offense for 15, 16 years straight. Sometimes, often, they've led the league in offense. And here they are 28th. Well, why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, it's a quarterback transition to a new quarterback. Two, they've had a lot of short fields. They've intercepted 9 passes. That's a lot. So they end up with like 40, 50-yard drives. So they're scoring touchdowns, but they're not amassing yardage. So they end up 28th in total yards gained, but they're actually in the top 10 in scoring offense. So it's a little bit of we don't have enough of a body of work yet for this to play out. But I think they've done a great job in key situations, and that's coaching. That's Sean Payton dialing up the right plays in the red zone. That's them, Dennis Allen, having the right defensive play calls when they get down near the goal line. I think your confidence should come, if you're a Saints fan, from this coaching staff. They have a track record of improving as the year goes on, and they're going to get some of their key players back. I just think this team's got a lot of improvement to do, a high ceiling that we just haven't seen yet. So I'm optimistic, as you know.
Yeah, I know that you have been, and you've seen in at least the last couple of games, they're starting to go downfield a little bit more. So you're seeing more the pass yardage improving. And then you look at kind of who's coming back and all these elements. It's got to bode well for the future. But then you look at Michael Thomas, and it doesn't look like he's going to be ready yet. So what's your latest thinking on Michael Thomas?
Well, I was told that he was in good shape and might even come back and practice this week. So it's a little bit of a setback that he's not going to get on the practice field, and it's still a couple weeks away. But I think they'll be fine without him. I mean, they catch Seattle at a good time. They don't have Russell Wilson quarterbacking, but it's still going to be a challenge. It's going to be Monday night. Seattle's a difficult place to play. It's been raining all week as usual in Seattle, so it could be kind of rough, slippery sledding out there. And they're a desperate team, Ricky. They've lost 2 in a row, 4 of their last 5. They're going to get Seattle's best shot. It's not going to be easy in a primetime environment, but it is a good time to play them without their star quarterback. So I think it's another one of those games you just try and get out of town with a win. I think it's going to be this way this season for this team. They're not going to have a lot of easy wins, even though they've had a couple so far. It's been a little bit of a weird year. I wrote this the other day. There hasn't been a lot of drama to the Saints games. They've either been way up or that Carolina game, they were completely out of it. The Giants game was weird in that they were winning the whole game, and all of a sudden the Giants just scored 3 of the last 4 drives, and the Saints there wasn't much drama there either. So I feel like we're going to get some drama coming up in the next few games.
Yeah, I want some drama that plays in our favor.
Right.
I want some
I was going to say, we haven't seen Jameis Winston really with his feet to the fire yet as a quarterback. We're so used to Drew Brees doing those 2-minute drills and driving the Saints to a winning field goal. I mean, he was a master of operating in those conditions, even before halftime. We really haven't seen, and Jameis talked about this, he hasn't really had the 2-minute offense yet, having to make the game-winning drive to win the game just because of the circumstances of how these games have played out.
I want some datitude.
Yeah, the Jim Derry podcast that we did this week, the Datitude podcast, we talked about that. And here's the other thing I would say about Jameis Winston. I like the improvement. I like that he's getting better each week. You can tell he's getting more comfortable, and Sean Payton's getting more comfortable with him. But the area he's got to improve in is his pocket awareness. That interception he threw last week, we talked about it. You can look at that in a lot of different ways. He got his foot stepped on by under his feet. That's the area where he can improve in. He needs to feel that pressure and not get his foot stepped on. I know an easy knee-jerk reaction is to blame the offensive lineman, but the offensive lineman's trying to withstand a bull rush, and he needs to obviously hold his ground better. But a really elite quarterback like Drew Brees feels that and is able to kind of sidestep it a little bit and get his pass off. And I think that's the area that the Saints want to see some improvement from Jameis, so it avoids those critical mistakes like interceptions and fumbles.
It's so easy to take for granted what Drew brought to the table. His pocket presence was some of the best ever. And, because of his size, he would get some balls batted down from time to time. But it is really remarkable that didn't happen more often, isn't it? Given the fact that he's having to look over these towering men that are surrounding him in that pocket. It's amazing that Drew did what he did.
Well, you talk to the coaches and some of his teammates. I mean, he was extraordinary in that. I mean, I think it was really, they said it was like a sixth sense that he had, the ability to feel the pressure, slide his feet. That's athleticism too. We tend to think of athleticism as jumping high and running fast. No, there's peripheral vision as part of athleticism, the ability to move quick in what they call a phone booth of the NFL pocket. All that stuff he was extraordinary at. That tennis background, the soccer background, his quick foot movements, very subtle, but it's part of quarterback play in the NFL, as Sean Payton says. The pocket's not going to be perfect. It's you've got incredible athletes on the other side of the ball, and so you got to be able to manage that and navigate it and get the pass off without all of the leading to interception.
I'm hoping some of the drama comes from Taysom Hill. We'll get an update on his situation, but one of the names that's trending for new babies' names is Taysom. That's so interesting. He's such a popular player. And the pass that got intercepted where he got his foot stepped on, Taysom was wide open. If he'd have gotten that, it would have been a for sure touchdown. Anyway, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Jeff Duncan.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Dale Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera slips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
As I said before we went to break, one of the names that's trending for new baby names is Taysom. Never even heard that name before Taysom Hill came on the scene. What's the latest on Taysom Hill?
Well, we will get an injury update. Unfortunately, we don't have one right now. I mean, he suffered a very serious concussion, and so he'll be in concussion protocol all week. He'll have to pass those benchmarks to get back on the field. So I don't know if we're going to see him against Seattle or not. We'll know better over the weekend as he gets if he tries to get back on the practice field. But they're going to be cautious with that. He really hasn't had many concussion issues in his pro career. I know he had a couple at Brigham Young, but he's a key part of their offense. I think the best thing that you can say about that situation is the fact the Saints know what they're working with. They can go into the game with a different short yardage package because he's like their short yardage back, if you will. He's the guy they go to at the goal line a lot. They know they don't have him. At least they can come up with a backup plan as opposed to it happening in the middle of the game like it did last time.
Man, I've watched that hit over and over and over again. Man, it was a severe hit. I mean, you hate to see one of your star players in that situation. The guy says he was going for the ball, but bottom line is it was just violent. And I can only imagine how much worse it could have been. You know, it could have been. I mean, eventually, buddy, somebody's going to get a hit in that situation, and they're not going to get up, and it's going to be deadly. And let's hope it's not one of our players. Let's hope it's not any of the players. But it's a tough game, and it's a violent game.
Well, you know, they made some great improvements in helmet technology. That's one thing I've noticed. There have been fewer concussions in the league the last few years. The league's progress in that area has been, I think, very good as far as changing the way players tackle and trying to enforce player safety, improving the technology, like I said, with the helmets. There's a lot of reasons for optimism in that area that I don't think it's covered enough. So it's unusual to see something like that happen. It's such a violent game. Players are so extraordinarily fast that, all it takes is a 2 or 3 inches change in how a player comes into a collision can mean the difference between a serious injury or just dodging a bullet.
Well, let's come back to Alvin Kamara and the running back. Alvin Kamara has he's been grinding them out. Every now and then recently you've been able to see a little bit more of his balance on display, making a little bit further. I hope some of that drama that you hope that we may see comes in Alvin Kamara. But if you look at running backs in general, and you can comment about Alvin in a second, we picked up former Pro Bowl running back Lamar Miller. It looks like Tony Jones is going to be, maybe be another week or so, but that's good, that he's going to be coming back. What's your take on where we are with running backs these days?
Well, I think they wanted Lamar Miller in there, a veteran guy that knows the passing game. It's such an important role in the Saints offense to have a back that's experienced, that understands pass protection, how to get out into the pass pattern. I mean, the Saints rely a lot on the running backs, so I think that's the role he'll fill. They still have Divine Azigbo, who they brought up, signed away from Jacksonville, the guy that knows their system as well. But I think they wanted a more experienced guy back there, and to take a little bit of the load off of Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is averaging 18 carries a game. That's a career high. And look, you got to ride the thoroughbred if you can. I mean, he's their best offensive playmaker, but I think they also want him to not get worn down over the course of the season. So I think this move made a lot of sense.
He's staying healthy. Thank goodness. I don't want to jinx the situation, but he's taking some pretty serious hits too.
Yeah, look, the one thing that's missing so far in his stats so far, I mean, he's having a great year, is he really hadn't had the big explosive play, the big play. I think that's going to come, especially when they start getting back some of the Eric McCoy and Teron Armstead, that will help them open up some bigger holes that he can use his great elusiveness. He had that beautiful touchdown run against Washington, 23-yard touchdown run where he made the safety miss. He's an elite player, one of the greatest. He might be the greatest running back in Saints history when it's all said and done. He's on that path to become the all-time leading rusher. But I think they would love to be able to get Mike Thomas and Traquan Smith back to kind of take some of the playmaking load off of his shoulders.
Hey, by the way, coming back to the Tennessee Titan game, because you're talking about running backs that do amazing things. I actually picked Tennessee for that game. I thought Tennessee was going to play a hell of a game. Man, they've got themselves a running back, don't they?
Oh, it's Derrick Henry. He's amazing. And supposedly, and I've talked to some of my colleagues there that cover him, say he's just an incredible person, great team player. Stayed out after the game the other night, signed autographs for 20 minutes to the fans after he went in and did his media duties. I mean, he's a special player, and Tennessee had to have that game. That was a huge game, and I think we see just how wide open this season is so far. I know Arizona's 5-0, but I don't think that's going to hold up. I think this season is going to be wide open. Like as I alluded to earlier, I think we could see a wild card team win the Super Bowl this year because the playing field's that level.
Yeah, you don't see the Chiefs as dominating as they normally are.
No.
I'm hoping that we see Tampa is vulnerable before it's over with. Parity, man, it's there. It's there in the NFL, and hopefully by the end of the season, New Orleans, with all these players coming back, finds its footing underneath. The final word, Jeff?
Well, I was just going to say, I think Dallas right now might make a claim as good as anybody, but that 2-week span coming up in the Superdome in early November, Buffalo and Dallas in the Superdome, those two teams could be playing for the Super Bowl down the road. That's going to be a big kind of statement weekend, or 2 weekends in a row for New Orleans and the Saints.
Let's hope we're ready. It's a tough schedule coming up for sure. Anyway, Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Ricky. We'll talk again next week, buddy.
You bet. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, guess what?